Good morning, Titans Nation. Welcome back into the Morning Glory Show. I am your host, Jake Robertson. Follow me on Twitter / all socials at Glory Day Sports. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, B Will at BWillTFTV. Make sure you go follow him on socials as well. How you doing today, B Will?
Man, I'm good, man. We had some big news break overnight, didn't we?
We had some breaking news right before the show started. Wide receiver
Yeah.
one is in the room for the Tennessee Titans. NWI, Nick Westbrook-Akine is back. He is back in the building, and we got our guy, Will Levis. He's set. We got the bell of the ball. We're set. We're ready to roll. But no, we got Calvin Ridley, obviously, yesterday, the big signing. Opening day of free agency after the tampering period. Rand's got his guy. Bring him in to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. How are we feeling about the move?
Man, I like it. So when I first heard about it, I wasn't at the house, but I saw the numbers. I was like, ooh, I sort of scrunched a little bit. But then I thought about it. I know, lucky for us, J-Rob and Vrabel didn't draft well the last 4 or 5 years, so we don't have much to pay coming up. So we really have a lot of wiggle room in these next 2 years to really divvy out some money and, put a really good team around Will Levis that we can. I mean, I'm not going to lie, the Calvin Ridley signing, it doesn't change my expectations because I still expected us to compete for the division. That should be the standard for Titans fans, is to be able to compete for the division. But it makes me a little bit more confident about saying that.
Definitely. And seeing those original numbers, and we don't have the full contract details, of course, at this point. So it could get even better in our favor. First, looking at it, 92 million, 50 million guaranteed. You're going, okay, I can see it. But 23 mil per year, according to Spot Track, 4 years, 92, 50 million guaranteed, ranks 10th amongst active wide receivers. And we know we have these guys. It's not bad at all. We got these guys coming into this next season that are going to be extension eligible. So this is going to be a 15 to 16-esque wide receiver on a average annual salary. So that, in my opinion, that's a steal, even though it looks high at the moment. Once we get those official numbers, and I anticipate this is probably more of a 2-year deal, and we'll have that out. We know Calvin Ridley.
You got to think, too, these initial numbers that come out, they're all agent-fed to guys like Rap Sheet and Adam Schefter.
This is the top. This is what it
absolute
could be.
Top dollar. It's like if you go to a car lot and they tell you the car is $30,000. Now, you got to get there and you got to talk to somebody first. It ain't going to be $30,000.
No, I'm super happy with the deal. And then just looking at the numbers, I've always been a fan of Calvin ever since he came out in the draft. But this is a dude that's putting it all together now. And some of these numbers we're looking at, as far as average depth of target last season, the Titans now have the 2 highest starters in the league. As long as Odell doesn't go back to the Ravens or one of the Kansas City, if not MVS, but one of the other Chiefs receivers.
Is it?
I don't believe so. I had it written down, but I lost my notes and then haven't been able to find him again. But
no, it ain't Tony.
As of right now, the highest active who is it? No, it is MVS. If MVS goes back to the Chiefs, that gives them the highest over there. But as of now, the highest active on all NFL teams. Hopkins had a 14.8 and Ridley at 13.9. And that was with Nick Holtz last season. So we should be able to push the ball downfield, and we know that's where Will Levis thrives. Christian in the comments says he's 29 and was a year and a half removed from the NFL. He's going to be so much better this year. I agree. I think that's the bottom. It's almost going back to his rookie year. I mean, and this is a guy that thrives on the perimeter, and same with D-Hop. I think they were roughly around both at 80 to 90% played on the outside this past season. So I'm super happy with the deal.
With Ridley, he was sort of pigeonholed into the X receiver spot with Jacksonville. So that's not necessarily something he's going to have to contend with here in Tennessee, because D-Hop is going to be the guy setting that line of scrimmage every single play if he's not in the slot. So, I think we'll be able to move Ridley around a lot. I think it opens some things up for Treylon Burks if we don't draft a receiver. I still want us to draft a receiver. This doesn't really change much. Maybe not early, but at least in the mid-rounds,
Definitely. And you alluded to it weeks ago that Treylon obviously played in the slot primarily in college, and we've kind of pigeonholed him to be that outside receiver here in the league. Maybe this allows him to have that renaissance in the slots. I mean, he's one of the only 2 wide receivers in the NFL with 10+ inch hands, and the other one is DeAndre. So I see the upside of it. I would still see, as far as draft goes, I don't think it changes our approach at all. I could still see one wide receiver at 7. I believe they could.
I wouldn't be mad at it.
I wouldn't either. I think they could. I think Joe Alt's going to be the one that's alluded to in most media-based mock drafts, and a lot of Titans fans are going to be churning for that as well. Doesn't make it all be all, in my opinion, and I'm still pro trading back as well and picking up an Olu or Brock Bowers.
This opens that up way more.
Yeah, we're not pigeonholed into going, you have to get a receiver here. You have to get a tackle here. It allows us to spread out. I'm super happy with that. If you guys are checking us out in the comments, I see we got about 100 people in the chat. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe over on YouTube. Make sure you join the chat over there so we can cover everything. But, yeah, I think this fan base needed something yesterday. It was a slow day, and people were looking at what the Texans were doing, which I think we're both in agreement that we're not super overly impressed. They got our hand-me-downs, and they added a lot of pieces, but they didn't add great pieces.
Right.
You can argue that of 1 or 2.
I'm not too worried about them, to be honest. You know, they're going to be a decent football team, but we got just as much talent initially, and we're still adding guys. We got Armstead that just got released from San Francisco. We've still got a lot of work to do. You know, there's still a lot of work to be done in this offseason, and I'm not afraid of Houston with what they have going on there. They got C.J. Stroud, they got Slowick coming back, but that's another year of tape on Slowick. You know, these DCs have a year of tape on Slowick, a year of tape on Stroud. Sophomore slump is possible, and if it has it, we'll be right there.
We're putting in the pieces for Denard Wilson to stop Stroud, in my opinion. I mean, we could still bring another outside linebacker. We know we have Armstead that's out there on the market, and then Chase Young is scheduled to visit. I think that visit's probably happening today, if I had to assume. It hasn't been announced. We know Jerome Baker is visiting today.
Is coming in today.
And that's a guy that I'm super high on. We need one more on the inside. I'm sure we'll cover it here in a minute, but we brought in one other one. But we need a second dude. We did tender Dr. Gibby yesterday. So that gives us a great linebacker 3/4. He
and the big elephant in the room too. You ain't even said it. You ain't said it.
No, not yet. Not yet. We'll get to it though. We'll get to it. But so starting off free agency, we know Derrick Henry is gone. And we give out our flowers, we pour out one for Derrick Henry. Obviously, if we were to, maybe he did go to the Ravens. So maybe if we did that draft we did last week as favorite Titans of all time, maybe Jonathan doesn't take that. Maybe some fans are a little salty about him going to the Ravens. He did win last week. But yeah, Derrick Henry.
You know, for each fan, everybody can fan their own way, man. People can hate Derrick. People can love Derrick. People can root for the Ravens. People cannot root for the Ravens. I'm not rooting for the damn Ravens.
Oh, no.
And I'm not rooting for Derrick while he's on the Ravens. So, you know, everybody, it's their own prerogative.
No. Obviously, being in the AFC still, I can't cheer for him. It is what it is. Maybe if it's them, and I can't even think of an NFC team that I would hate to see win. Maybe the Cowboys, if they made it to the Super Bowl, maybe I might cheer for them. For Derrick to get that ring if they're up there, or the Eagles. I do hate the Eagles. They have the worst fans in the entire NFL, in my opinion. But yeah, we got Calvin Ridley, we got Nick Westbrook-Akine. Derrick Henry's gone. We brought in Tony Pollard. So this is a signing I wasn't very high on in the beginning, just because I come from the idea of I don't like paying free agent running backs. But this is a year. And we've seen it for the last several years. Running backs don't get paid. It's just what it is. You use them up 3-4 years, you send them out the door, and then you draft another one. And Pollard coming out of Memphis, so we got a little hometown Tennessee boy. I think it was No Flex Film. James Foster put it out after week 11. He had like the second highest grade in all of PFF. He did come back from, it was a sprained ankle, fractured tibia, if I remember right. So in the beginning of the year, nasty injury. He was recovering all last season. And once he got healthy, he was back to what he was the previous season. So, and we know this is another, I think it was another pretty much, it was a 3-year deal, but it's pretty much you got the out after the second year, if I remember correctly. I think it was
Right.
321 mil. I think it's 2
Something
years,
like that.
14 mil, if I remember correctly, with the out. So I don't mind it. He pretty much is exactly what Tajay Spears is. I don't
Right.
know how we feel about paying a running back with no knee and then a running back with no leg, but it is
Hey,
what
the
it
thing
is.
is, the thing is with him, and I think it's very, very, very important that we talk about this of them being of the same ilk, the same profile type back, because it doesn't really tip our hand when we bring either or into the game. That's one of our, to me, that was our biggest downfall last year is that we literally would tip our hand when we had one or the other back end.
Yeah, you can't load the box against either of them.
Right.
And I think that is the Rancarthon San Francisco connection.
Mhm.
Whoever they have in the building looks the exact same, other than they brought in that running back at LSU a couple years ago who didn't see the field. But it's
Right.
always a speed dude that can he can catch the ball out of the backfield. You got the Christian McCaffrey, the Elijah Mitchell, going back to the Raheem Mosterts, the Jerick McKinnons, whoever they've had in the building is all a similar type, and it doesn't tip your hand, like you said. So I wouldn't mind them. I think they could potentially still bring in one throughout the draft with these smaller-esque running backs, these speed demons. They do struggle with injury at times, and we've seen
Right.
that. So I think
They
having
re-signed
a third,
Chestnut yesterday too.
they re-signed Chestnut, and I think what you're looking for out of that run RB3 is you want to be a special teamer, and that's something that Chestnut does bring to the table.
Mhm.
It is a 1-year deal, just like Nick Westbrook, but we'll see if he can stick on the back end of the roster. I think he will be fighting for a roster spot against a 7th-round rookie or an undrafted free agent in their own right that
Right.
Rand brought in. So we'll see how that plays out. But overall, don't hate it. Getting into the quarterback, we brought in Mason Rudolph. How we feeling about that?
Man, I think people are really overreacting to a backup quarterback signing. So I'm gonna break this down and I'm gonna try and be as honest as possible. If we bring a backup quarterback in, he just needs to be serviceable. Nothing
Yep.
more, nothing less. We don't need to pay him $8-10 million like these other teams. If the backup quarterback is in the game, and this is something that Tom Moore said about Peyton Manning way back when, and it stuck in my head. If our quarterback is in the game, we're screwed. So, if Mason Rudolph is in the game and Levis is out for a good while, we probably should be not as competitive anyway in case we need to get a quarterback. So that's the way I look at it, man. Mason Rudolph, but he's a good quarterback though. He did well with Pittsburgh last year.
Mm-hmm.
He does decent in spurts, very high completion percentage. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to turn it over and try and play hero ball that much. So I'm not mad at it. It's a backup quarterback at the end of the day. We should be more worried about O-line, like not having a tackle right now. That's what we should be more worried about.
Yeah. With Mason, obviously Malik is gone.
Right.
We'll see if they just outright cut him, if they allow him to maybe play more preseason games and maybe boost up some trade value that he doesn't have at the moment. So we'll see how that plays out. But Brian Callahan said he wants a guy that can come in, run the offense, and can be just – he doesn't want to change the offense if Will Levis does go down. Mason Rudolph can do a lot of those things that Will does. He doesn't have the arm strength or anything like that. Coming out of Oklahoma State, I was pretty familiar with the dude. He just doesn't have the athletic traits to be a starter in the league. But winning record as far as a quarterback, 8-4, whatever it is.
He's decent.
I think he's decent, and that's what you want at a backup. You want him to come in for a quarter or two and not piss away the game. Come in a week or two and be able to manage an offense. Malik can't do that. So overall, I'm happy with it. I think it was a 1 year, $2.5, $3 million deal.
Yeah, $2 or $3
not
million.
Bad at all.
Not bad at all.
And I'm assuming it's probably $2 million, and he has an incentive to get another $1 million or something like that if he has to play.
The thing is, too, with Rudolph, the Browns had a backup quarterback last year that got hurt. They brought in Joe Flacco and ended up paying him the same amount over a couple weeks because of incentives and stuff. So at least get the guy in. Then you don't have to worry about on the back end having to pay incentives for if he wins a playoff game, if he gets you to the playoffs. I mean, Flacco probably got like $1 million just off winning. That's unaccounted for.
I mean, he played better than Deshaun. He played better than any quarterback in Cleveland last year. So
he might beat out Richardson.
he could be. He could.
Just playing.
We'll see. But I mean, overall, it's does it move the needle? No. But it gives you some protection. That's all it is.
And it's not a controversy as well because I'm a Tennessee fan as well. But if Dobbs comes in here, there's going to be too much extra chatter for no reason.
If they brought in a Gardner Minshew-esque player, it's just going to stir the pot. And Will Levis has one bad game. Vols fans are coming out. They're coming out for Levis. So I don't think anybody's going to be churning for Rudolph. So, but maybe I don't think it's a maybe. It's my favorite signing that we've had thus far outside of Ridley. Lloyd Cushenberry. We got the Cush in Tennessee at center. Got to replace Aaron Brewer. And I just wanted to look at it. And coming in at 6'4", 322, the last time Bill Callahan had a similar center, it was Joel Bitonio, who in his first year with Bill was a second-team All-Pro, second year, first team, third year, first team All-Pro. So that's what you're looking to get out of Cush. He was the top-end market out of the center position. But looking at what he's done over there in Denver, 2 sacks, 23 total pressures these last 2 seasons. For correlation, Brewer had 10 sacks, which is 5 times the most, and 70 pressures. Yeah, in the past 2 seasons.
And 70 pressures?
Yeah, so literally 8 more sacks and 47 more pressures is what we're taking off the board in the last 2 years.
Oh, my.
And bringing in Bill, of course, we haven't seen the top end of what Cushenberry might be. So this is a sit it and forget it.
Going from bruise to Cush, I ain't too mad at it. So if it's healthier for everybody, it does well. Cushenberry, and I think Cushenberry will do well too, with Bill Callahan and just being a leader in that offensive line room. I'm much happier that we went with a veteran center instead of a young center in a draft because it's sort of hard to do it when you got a young center, young quarterback, and you look at the rest of the offensive line and it's young as well. The oldest guy that had been on that offensive line might have been Radens at 26. You need, and Cushenberry isn't. I'm not going to say he's old by any means, but he's been around. He's a veteran. He's been in a complex offense in Sean Payton. He's been, he's used to taking responsibility at the line of scrimmage because he had a young quarterback last year. So, I think that'll really help him. He's experienced working with young quarterbacks. It should be a seamless transition. I'm happy to see what he does and what he does with that offensive line room.
I mean, and the biggest winner out of this is probably Peter Skoronski.
Oh, yeah.
You look at that last season, he was just asked to do too much. I mean, the injury, of course, slowed down that as well. But you look at the black hole on your left side or the black hole on the right side, who are you going to help? And then you have to worry about the guy coming at you. So you can only do so much. So if you bring in Cush over that right side, and we'll see who they bring in over the left side. And if it's a rookie, we have to understand, even if it's Joe Alt, he's not going to come in and be an all-pro from day one. He's still going to need some assistance. So they might bring in a bridge gap to help ling that along. But regardless, Peter Skoronski is in for a huge year this upcoming season. And I honestly, I think he's the biggest winner. Oh, yeah. We should see a huge jump from him. We see a huge jump from Cush. We'll see who's playing right guard, right tackle, left tackle. But overall, this is starting to shape up into a good free agency class. And like you alluded to, if you brought in one of these centers in the draft, there are some top-end talents. But if you don't bring in a JPJ, Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon, who probably won't be there at 38, and you're not drafting him at 7. There's also Zach Frazier out of West Virginia, who is a guy that I just don't think is an overall scheme fit for what we're wanting to do. But he is deservingly, and the Zexty over here in the chat says Radens right guard.
Could see
personally, that. I could see it, but I'm honestly not the biggest Radens fan either. Maybe Billy C can get a hold of him and we can get those penalties off the board, but you can't be stopping drives every time. And then
I think
Slow
the
Bros Network
for Radens might have just been, just not feeling confident. When you're not confident, you feel like you got to, get an extra step on a guy initially. That's going to happen. It's false starts. It's not like it was a bunch of holding penalties, so that's something that's fixable.
100%. And then we got Sobros Network, Stoney Keeley over there. The Titans about to draft 8 offensive tackles. I mean, I'm not going to say no. Anything can happen. And
It can.
We got, 9? No, I guess we do have 8 picks. So I think regardless, you have to go O-line with one of these first 2 picks, either at 7 or 38. Or if you trade back, you can pick up a Fuaga, Fashanu, or whoever you're going there. But wide receiver, I think, is probably still up there as far as a target as well. But I think that covers all of what we brought back on the offensive side. I guess you could add in Nick Folt as part of the special teams. We didn't folk around and find out. We got our kicker back in the board.
Not say it.
I know. and we got the Snap King back, so we're getting the band back together with him and Stonehouse. So special teams is set other than returner. We'll see if.
So glad we don't have to fool with a kicking issue this offseason. It's
God, it's nice.
Let's have a kicker.
It's nice not to have to worry about it.
Be fine.
He doesn't have the range,
best of a leg,
but
like you said, yeah. But he's accurate, so
that's all. It was such a. It helped my soul last season when we came out to kick even a 20, 30-yard field goal that I didn't just have to freak out and cross my fingers.
You can go and grab a beer when we're kicking a short field goal. You
Felt
couldn't do that before.
Do we know Stonehouse is going to be good to go this season? I believe so. I think he should be good by training camp, mini camp, whatever. I think he should be good to go. I think he's 100%, and I think he's already back to training, if I know right. But shouldn't have to worry about that. Yeah, he's out there selling real estate, and man, when he put out that post,
it'll be fine.
Yeah, he's knocking them doors, he's selling them houses, he's doing his thing. I think he's good to go.
Real quick, how do you think Brewer is going to do in Miami? I know a lot of Titans fans are really emotional about Brewer, but I think he's a perfect fit in Miami. I'll be honest.
I pray for Tua. You can practice as many jiu-jitsu falls that you want. Getting hit that many times, I worry about him. But if he can stay healthy, I mean, what Aaron Brewer does well is he runs block really well, specifically in a zone-based scheme. And when you have these demons on the outside and Waddle and Hill and Achane and Mostert, that does pair very well for him. I still do ultimately worry about his pass blocking, though. If Tua can't operate out of the system, it's gonna get real scary for him in the interior. But
I think with him, go ahead.
Oh no, you're all good. I was just about to say we're hopping into the defense.
Real quick with Brewer, McDaniel moves the pocket a ton with Tua, and it's really, really short. Tua had one of the shortest time to throws in the league last year. So Brewer's not going to be sitting up there in a strict pass set for 4 seconds like we do with a lot of the hard play action fakes we did. So Brewer's also be moved around a lot. He pulls the center. McDaniel pulls the center out when they do rollouts and stuff. Brewer's athletic enough to do that. I think he'll do a lot better than people think, just because he's not going to be static in that pass blocking set. And then when he's not static, he's pretty dang good.
I mean, we know one thing. He's tougher than a $2 steak, and they got that in Miami now. We got that. I alluded to it months ago. I was like, we should bring him back as a tight end 3, where he originally started with the Titans, and he commented on the post, and he wasn't too happy about that. So I'm happy he got paid. He's over there in Miami now. But if you guys are checking us out for the first time, looks like we got about 260 people in the chat. Make sure you go over into YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Brewer probably landed in probably the best possible situation for him. I do agree with that. With over his Stoney. But hopping into the defense, we got some key signings. Bringing in the first one, probably the biggest one. We got Cheeto. We got Cheeto in the building. Chidobe Awuzie. This is a guy that the Titans probably should have drafted when they drafted Adoree Jackson back then. But that's not here or there. We got him in free agency. Jake, what do you think of our free agency? That's what you're in the right place. That's what we're talking about right now. That's what you're talking
Cut
about
the
right
volume
now.
up.
Yep, turn the volume up. If you missed the beginning, go like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be posting on YouTube later today as well. Chijobie, this is a guy. He's a man corner. He fits in the Denard Wilson scheme. He has a big, strong corner. He does allow a high completion percentage, and that was something that worried me initially. We're just looking at the statistics, but this is a dude that if you take away, he allowed a 66-yard play and a 34-yard play, one in Houston and in Pitt. If you take those out, he only allowed 24 yards per game this past season. Pretty damn good when
Very good.
in comparison, SMB was at 45, Fulton was at 52. So, and this, like I said, this is a guy that fits into the scheme. Super happy with that. What do you think about Cheeto?
I think he'll be really good in our system. He also allows us to really keep McCreary in the slot, which is really big for him in his development. You know, I don't want to see McCreary outside. Cheeto does well with that, and he's a little feisty too. When I'm watching his tape, you know, he's not just a guy that's gonna just cover the receiver that he's in. He's really active outside of all that in the play. So you'll see him sometimes go up to a pile, try and punch a ball out, or when the receiver gets past him and tackles him, tries to punch the ball out. So that's something that Denard Wilson's really going to preach too, is we've got to get better with turnovers. We didn't really create that many turnovers last year. And to do that, you've got to be creative with it because, you know, as many good quarterbacks as we got in this league, they're not just going to put it in your breadbasket. You got to force turnovers. You got to be attacking. And from what I've seen on his tape, he's really an attacking player. He looks at defense like it's offense. So that's something I really liked about him. And if we can find a way to pair him with a dog on the other side, I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, and I think Denard Wilson had a great quote on that. He said, we're not going to aim for turnovers, but how do you cause turnovers? It's population and technique. And I think that's something that you have to have those guys that want to get to the ball. And Cheeto's that guy. And just hearing Cincinnati's beat reporters and everybody talk about him leaving this is a guy that brings in a locker room presence. This is a leadership side of the ball. And that's something that the Titans are sorely missing right now with KB obviously gone last season. You got Big Jeff, and he's that other guy that you have right now. And then Aziz, that was another guy that was kind of up there in the locker room that is now gone. So I think Cheeto, like you said, if we bring in one more piece, we are good to go. And
I'm greedy. I want two, man. Two more big pieces on defense.
One more free agency, one more in the draft is what I look at. And we alluded to it last week. Obviously, there's a guy over there in Kansas City that has been floated around with Jerry Sneed. I came here on the pod last week, and I was like, I am out on Sneed trading the 38th pick, and I still kind of stand with that. I still think if you keep that 38th pick, I think you can still get a great corner in a Kamari Lassiter. There's the TJ Tampa out of Iowa State. There's going to be a lot of players on the board that you can bring in early that can still play. They're going to be a lot cheaper. But if we're talking third-round pick, obviously we don't have one this season. But if they take a third next season, I'm all in it. If it's a second round next season.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a buddy text me this scenario. What do you think about us trading out of 7 to probably 10, picking up a third and flipping that third with Kansas City?
Oh, I'm all for it. I am team trade back 100% of the time, regardless of draft almost, just because I want more step-ups to the plate. And if you can get the difference between pick 7 and pick 10, I mean, you're still getting top-tier talent, maybe even blue-chip talent. We figured that out last season with Peter Skoronski. But if you do that and you swap out that third pick for a proven player, hell yeah, I'm all for it. You're about to see a lot of drops from Calvin, especially on slant routes. Cool. I mean, he had, I think, 7 drops last season, which I think was the highest he had his entire career. And this is a dude that didn't play football the year before that. This is a guy still getting his legs under him. I think he should be able to work on those contested catches more than anything. And this is a route savant. He's going to get open. He's going to give some easy windows for Will Levis.
Look who he had throwing the ball too.
Yeah.
It can't get much worse than Trevor Lawrence Sunshine.
Well, they have their quarterback one in the building now. They got Mac Jones.
They just signed him. Yeah.
They got their dude.
Yeah.
I think the draft
That
will
ain't
go in
exactly a
Titans
vote of
rage.
confidence for Trevor Lawrence, if we're being honest. And I know I'm biased against the Jacksonville Jaguars, but that is not a vote of confidence for Trevor Lawrence, especially with Doug Peterson. He's a guy that likes his backup quarterbacks.
Yep.
He ain't afraid to switch it out.
No, I mean Nick Folk's got a Super Bowl ring. I mean, or not Nick Folk. God, what was their quarterback? Was it Nick Folk? No, Nick Folk's our kicker.
It's the tall.
I don't remember. Yeah, it's tall dude. But yep.
He played for Indy too.
Yeah. But overall, super happy with the signing. Chidobe, I don't think he has the ability to be a CB1, but he's a great CB2. So
I think he's an upgrade on Murphy Bunton, and that's what he should have been. It's
looking
all about
at the
upgrading
statistics,
guys.
Yeah, he's all over it. And this is a guy that we can bring in. I forget how long we signed him for. I think it was a 4-year deal. Maybe a 3-year deal.
We haven't handed out anything over a 4-year deal. I'd like to see us get Simmons as well, the safety from the Broncos. He could be another leadership presence there.
He's a turnover merchant. My God. Not Folk.
Nick Foles.
Yeah.
You said Folk?
I said Folk, our kicker. But yeah, I mean,
Simmons, I'd be happy to have him as well if we can find a way to sign him. And then if we can find a way to get Snead, the defense is good job.
I mean, personally, I'm out on Simmons. Are you talking Justin or are you talking Isaiah? Yeah, so I'm out on Justin. I think that is just a Kevin Byard body double, in my opinion. Same age, same statistics, same athlete. They're very similar in size. This is I personally, I think they're the same age. I mean, it could be a Band-Aid, but looking at what he's asking for, I think Jacksonville was another team that they were in on him, and they ultimately backed out because of his asking price. So it's a lot. I'm personally out as well. I don't see a huge upgrade over Amani Hooker or Elijah Molden. They might not fit the scheme as well as maybe a Simmons with Denard Wilson. But overall, I think this is a good safety class coming up. It might not have the top end talent, but it makes up in depth. I think you can get a guy in rounds 4 through 7 that can be a rotational player. And then we still got guys like Kevon Wallace still on the free agency block that could still come in and rotate in that as well. That's familiar with Denard.
So I think we're a little different with him on Hooker and Molden, with Simmons not being much of an upgrade on them. I'm not high on Hooker. He doesn't have any.
I know you're not high on Hooker.
He doesn't cover any ground. He's really in a simple role for us, and he has been in the past. You're either giving leverage over the top in the quarter half or the deep third, or you're flying to the flats, and he doesn't excel in that. So I think we should upgrade on him. He doesn't force turnovers. I mean, what does he do?
The thing with our safety grouping is we are lacking an athlete more than anything, in my opinion. Molden and Hooker are both guys that aren't going to be able to cover the ground on the deep end, but
got cement boots on.
But they're cerebral players. And I mean, that's even going back to Kevin Byard. I mean, that's a dude that was never a hyper athlete. And once you lose a step when you're not already an athlete, it just falls off a cliff. So I think it's good to still bring in another guy or two just so we can have somebody to rotate in. And we know Hooker and Molden, not always the healthiest guys out there. So you got to have somebody else that can come in. And that's probably the biggest thing for us. Really hope Caleb Farley bounces back somehow. I mean, I think every Titans fan would love to see it, but I'm not holding my breath at any point for Caleb Farley. I think he's a great dude. He's probably battled some of the hardest things that we've ever seen as a Titan since coming into the league. But if he can cure up those nerve endings, I would like to see him back out there, and we'll see.
There's
absolutely
I'm not holding anybody in the NFL that can do it. It'd be Denard Wilson. So we got that on our side.
Oh yeah. So overall, I'd be fine with our safeties if we moved into next season with them. But you got to at least bring in somebody to be a depth piece. But Justin Simmons, obviously, if they go and get him, I'm going to cheer for him. Like I said, I think he can be Kevin Byard, and if you can get him at a cheaper deal, all for it. But that leads us into our last one, that we've signed is Kenneth Murray out of LA Chargers. This is a guy that fans are not very high on at the moment, is what I've taken, and it sounds like the media as well. And then we got Jonathan in the chat. He is awake and he is well. If you want to hop in, Jonathan, feel free to hop in. We're more than happy to have you come on in. But
with Simmons, or what's the fellow's name from
Kenneth Murray.
from LA? Murray.
From LA.
I get him mixed up with Isaiah Simmons because they're both uber athletic guys. But with Murray from LA, very, very athletic. We don't know what Denard Wilson is going to command out of his linebackers in this scheme yet. So any judgment about what he's going to do is premeditated and premature, because we have no clue what he's going to expect out of his linebackers. He could expect them just to play downhill and we move the safeties around and have an extra safety in the box all the time. So, I'm happy to add some athleticism. We've gone through years where we didn't have any athleticism on the field. We get some athleticism and people are mad because he's not the smartest player. It's sort of hard. If you're paying that price, you might not get both. So you can't. You got cake. It don't mean you can get a brownie too. We got some cake. He's athletic. So come on.
Kenneth Murray, coming out of Oklahoma, as an OU fan, obviously I'm probably biased and I was more high on him than a lot of people were. But this is a dude that see ball, get ball is where he thrives. And he didn't really fit the scheme over in LA. And I think Denard is going to say, hey, you're Bobby Boucher. Wherever the ball goes is where you go. And we'll see if they bring in a more cerebral player like a Jerome Baker. And if we're looking at that duo come next season, you don't see Murray as that inside linebacker one, but more so that Jack Gibbons replacement, who couldn't be more of a polar opposite from a player. You got the guy that's just flying around the field, doesn't know where he's going. You got the super cerebral guy. You got the hyper athlete. You got the guy that's not an athlete at all. So I think this fits into the scheme. Overall, I think it should be an upgrade. I think we'll see his best season this upcoming year. And this is a guy that can spy the quarterback. He can blitz, and that's probably the best thing he's good at. In coverage, he does leave a lot of things lacking. But we do have in our undrafted free agent Otis Reese, I think a lot of people that are high on him that have heard about him, but the ones that they haven't, they will soon enough. This is a guy that can come in. And we got Jonathan here. How you doing, Jonathan?
In the fourth quarter, baby. In the clutch.
Yep. Came in right at the right time. You want to give us our Otis Reese thoughts while you're here?
OTIS, baby. That's right. Big fan of Otis Reese. Yeah, but as linebacker 1 or 2, I don't know, right? So, but yeah, I just jumping in on the flavor train here. Yeah, big fan of Otis. Kenneth Murray is interesting signing. I'm higher on Kenneth Murray than I think most people. I really enjoyed watching him. Another thing that nobody's talking about, didn't Kenneth Murray absolutely go crazy on us last season? Like, he had a big game against us, if I'm remembering correctly. His name just kept popping up. Like, he was doing his thing. So I don't know. Do the PFF stats, do they tell the whole story? I'm not super convinced. Whenever you have a raw athlete like that, people keep telling me that he doesn't play coverage well. He doesn't read kind of what offense are doing against him very well. Cool. That's all coachable stuff, right? So we'll see.
The thing is with him is that if we're doing anything remotely like what Baltimore's doing with, a lot of the sim pressure looks, especially on third down, he's either blitzing or he's dropping into a hook curl or a flat. It's pretty simple for linebackers, across the board with that scheme sometimes. And that's all up to Denard how complex he makes it for the linebackers, particularly the will linebacker. So, we'll see about Murray. He's athletic. He'll get to the ball. It's all about having balance. And if we get another linebacker on the other side of him that's more cerebral and better, just more cerebral, I think we'll be fine. We're not a linebacker away from a Super Bowl, so cool it.
He's not going to wear your green dot.
No. I do think he's better of a pre-snap processor than he is post-snap. Something, once that ball is snapped, he just loses it. If it doesn't go his way, it just falls apart. And then pulling up the stats, he did have a sack on Tannehill in week 2, did hit him another time, 6 total tackles. And as far as coverage goes, he only allowed 9 yards against Tennessee last season. Decent. Granted, he did lose. give up about 651 other yards throughout the rest of the season, but only 9 against us. So take that with a grain of salt. But overall, I think Kenneth Murray will make a great linebacker too. Put him in that Will Sam overhang position. I think he can be fine. You can allow him rush off the edge as well. He did have a lot of snaps off the edge last season, which I'm super happy with. But then we got, who did we not cover? Who am I missing?
Defensively,
Sadiq Charles signed out of came from Panthers, if I remember right. This is a guy that came out before I covered the draft, and is a guy I'm not super high on. But this is a depth piece that does have starter reps the last 3 seasons. I think he was on the team with Joe Burrow at LSU. This is a guy that only played left tackle in college and then transferred over into the interior. He gives you some depth. That's what I see with that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Feels like a Brian or a Bill Callahan signing, doesn't it? Low key.
Athletic guy.
Yeah. Athletic. He's got size. He if I remember correctly, he's around that 6'4", 320 size as well. And that's Bill Callahan's mold right now. And
33-inch arms, I believe. Like, this guy's prototypical left tackle. Like, he's a prototypical tackle, but
we led the show with that, Stoney.
Yeah, Stoney. I mean, that was opening day. I mean, we got wide receiver 1 in the building. I mean, at least for one more year. So yeah, we got NWI back. I blame Mike Herndon. That's his dude. So he's back. We can't get this roster pirate off the 53, but we'll see. And then Skaronsi season in motion. Yep, with us, we agree. But yeah, I think that covers everybody. We're gonna hop into if you're good with Jonathan. We got our draft we're gonna cover today. We got
one
best
more, Jake,
TV
one
shows.
One more.
Yeah, we got one more.
I want to see what you guys, if y'all had a dream move for the rest of the offseason, free agents wise, who is it for y'all or trade?
Man,
start with you, Jake.
I think,
and this could be somebody we already talked about.
Dream move for me. I mean, you could say L'Jarius Sneed, and I'd be more than happy with that. With the trade compensation we talked about, but I'm all in on Malik Neighbors at 7 still. That's where I'm at. Even regardless of who's there at left tackle, I want to see 3 guys on the outside with Neighbors, Ridley, and Nuke. Nuke, we've got for one more season probably before he's out the building, and I want his predecessor. And I think Neighbors is probably the last remaining blue chip that will be on the board at that point in time. And I just want to see what that looks like with Will Levis.
If Odunze is there, are you taking Odunze too before you take a tackle?
Personally, I have Joe Alt over Odunze at this point in time. I'd be super happy with it, and that Madden team would go ham. But personally, I have Joe Alt slightly higher, and I think I come from best player available almost always, regardless of position. And a lot of people don't like that when I put out mocks and stuff, but that's how I see it. And if that's the way it plays out, I'd be fine with it.
What about you, Jonathan?
Well, I already predicted the Calvin Ridley signing. It was my top free agent target going into free agency, and it happened. So that's awesome. But I'm kind of leaning on the same side as you guys. The entire time we signed him, instant reaction was huge, amazing, right? Money's a little high, but I'll take it. That's the price of doing business right now. But my initial reaction was everyone was like, all right, just pencil Joe Alt in at 7. It's happening. I don't think that's the case at all. So yeah, if Neighbors is there at 7, I think you take him. I think if Odunze is there at 7, you consider taking him over Joe Alt if he's there. If it's any of those 3 guys, I'm going to be ecstatic. So I share that sentiment with Jake here. But as far as it's probably Neighbors for me. Would be like my dream athlete, but I'd be just as happy with Odunze. But it's wide receiver at 7, big impact receiver. DeAndre Hopkins, we have one more year of D-Hop. So beyond that, your wide receiver, woes are not solved necessarily. We don't have any. You can't add enough good wide receivers right now at this point. And I think that adding a dynamic receiver at 7 is a big impact for this offense. And again, if it ends up being Joe Alt or even Fashanu or somebody like that, I wouldn't be upset. If they traded back and took a tackle, added assets, wouldn't be upset because that would mean they're just going to add a receiver later. But yeah, I think dream scenario, if I could have it happen, it'd be receiver at 7.
I thought you were going to say Mekhi Becton. And then somebody beat you in the chat.
I mean, but I want it to happen just unreasonably. There's no good reason for it. I just think that having some solid, very raw, high ceiling talent for Callahan would be cool. So I don't know. It looks like he's going to end up being a Bengal. So we'll see.
Quinion Mitchell at 7. That's something we haven't talked about, and a lot of people haven't talked about, is the defensive players could – it makes it more likely now. And Quinion Mitchell, that's that dude that's pretty much excelled throughout this draft process, killed it at the Senior Bowl, killed it at the Combine, killed it in interviews, has the tape. I mean, that's a guy out there that's probably slid into CB1 for most people. I'm still holding on to my Kamari Lassiter tape, and I don't think you should probably go at 7. But and then we had
wasn't very kind to him.
Well, he came out at the 4.6, 4.61 in the 40, and I saw that and I was like, well, I'm going to have to make some moves. But then it got confirmed to 4.5, so that's enough speed for me. But yeah,
we have a little bit of breaking. It's not breaking news really, but Diana Rossini tweeted 3 minutes ago. Former Saints safety Marcus May is drawing interest from several teams. He will visit with the Tennessee Titans on Monday.
We're safety, man. We need a safety bet.
Man, we are tied to basically every free agent, huh? How many tweets have come out where it's like the Titans are interested?
I personally like May over Justin Simmons.
Justin Simmons.
I'm not a Justin Simmons guy. Like we talked about earlier, I think he is just another guy, another Kevin Byard in a bodysuit, basically. Jake, my brother, I gotta know where you see in the yeah. We'll get into that later.
Lassiter Hill.
I think he's the best man coverage corner in the draft. This is a dude that the biggest knock on him I see is might struggle with a larger corner or a larger receiver, but we haven't seen that in college, so I don't know why we would think that in the NFL. I think he's got the dynamicism, and I think he is got those choppy little feet just like a Quinion Mitchell, but I think he does it at a slightly higher level. If we're talking dream scenarios for guys that I think we're going to bring in free agency or via trade, L'Jarius Sneed would be the trade target. But if we're talking signing, I'm coming around on Chase Young. I see that.
I just realized he's 24.
He's
I thought
young.
he was older.
He's got an effort problem, bro.
And that's what I was going to allude to. The effort problem is the thing, but that's a dude that had more pressures last seasons with 2 teams than anybody on the Titans did by a significant number. And former first, did he go first overall in his draft?
He did, yeah, second overall.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. He's a high dude. This is a guy who's got the motor. He's not Nick Bosa or Joey Bosa coming out of Ohio State, but he's damn close. And I think that is a dude that you can pair well with the sack merchant and Harold Landry, and I think that's your duo. So I'd be.
Here's the thing with Chase Young too. You know, has he ever been around a DC that didn't have low T? I mean, he had Ron Rivera. He had the fella out in there in San Francisco. So Denard Wilson ain't got no low T. This dude is amped up all the time. If anybody can get Chase Young and get in his tail, I think it's Denard Wilson. I ain't lying to you.
And that's something I saw a lot in the chat was Chase Young played it opposite of Nick Bosa. So that helped him. He actually played better in Washington last season than he did in San Francisco up until really that Super Bowl where he was all over the field. So I'm all in on Chase Young, and I've been going back with Armstead. I think you get one of those guys I'm going to be super happy with. And initially I was leaning Armstead. But if I think I've switched. I think I want the high-end talent that Chase Young could be. So
at 24,
I'm taking the risk on that. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else you like to add about free agency or anything before hopping into this draft?
I don't know. Keep spending that money.
Yeah, 100%.
Keep going, Rand.
I think
keep cooking.
there's a lot more to happen here. I think that Titans fans probably saw Calvin Ridley and go, okay, all right, well, this was a good free agency. All right, big splash move. I like it. Rand's got a lot more money to spend, and there's a lot more holes to fill. I know Nick Westbrook-Akine, everybody's really excited or not to see him back, but there's a lot more moves that have to happen for the Titans. And honestly, there's a couple of guys out there still. Obviously, Armstead is exciting. Kendall Fuller, I don't think has signed, still available. Jerome Baker visiting today, which would be a huge get, by the way. I know you guys just talked about Baker before I hopped on, but would love Jerome Baker. Looks like he's expected to sign today, according to reports, which means hopefully it's the Titans and not the Panthers, which is where I think he was yesterday. But yeah, there's a ton of talent left out there. Nobody's talked about like kick or punt returners, I don't think. I didn't catch the beginning of the show, so you guys might have covered it, but Ray McLeod, free agent, would be, take a flyer on Ray McLeod to return punts and kicks.
DJ Reader's still out there as well. That's a dude I would love to bring in.
That's a big one. I know Eric Armstead would be great because he adds a little bit more versatility, but man, think about DJ Reader and Jeffrey Simmons in the middle of that defensive line. Whew.
And if we're lacking at the inside linebacker position, that's somebody I want up front to allow them to flow to the ball carriers. So DJ Reader, Jeffrey Simmons, and I don't think that eliminates you from bringing in an Armstead. I mean, that's the Tart and Danico pairing, in my opinion, but a hyped up version. I think that's better. So I'd be all for that. But if you check us out in the chat, guys, I think we got about 400 people up there. Make sure you go over to YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts as well. Just search Glory Day Sports like there at the bottom left-hand corner. But we're going to hop into this draft, guys. We got best TV shows of all time. We're going to go 4 picks each. We're going to go snake draft style. It's going to go Jonathan, B. Will, then me, and then in reverse order. And we'll do that 2 more times. So, Jonathan, you got the number 1 overall pick in a deep draft, in my opinion.
Very deep. Yeah. You know what? There's 2 shows that I've been considering at this pick. And one of them is Universal. The other one, some people are you're either really high on it or you don't care for it. And this is tough. I think I have to go with The Office. I love The Office. Just an all-time comedy. There's another show.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You could rewatch it a million times over and it's just as funny, just as enjoyable. The cast was incredible. There's another show I wanted to go with here, but this show in particular had a not great ending. So it kind of ruined the legacy, I think, a little bit. I think we're going to see it very soon, but I just couldn't put it at 101.
And I think that alludes to one show, in my opinion, but there's a lot of them. Now that I look at my list, I'm like, man, maybe that's not what I'm thinking. Well, we'll see. We'll find out, I'm sure. But all right, B. Will, you're back. You're on the clock with your first pick.
And I'm going to go with a show that almost wreaked a lot of havoc in my life. So I was a freshman in college, and for some reason, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do any work. I'm going to watch all 18 seasons of Law & Order SVU. It took me a semester. I finished it, but my GPA was a 1.8. So
oh, my God.
I almost flunked out of college behind this show. So this has to be my number 1 show, Law & Order SVU. An amazing show. I mean, you just can't beat it from start to finish, and they're still going. So just love Law & Order SVU. Always, I mean, you sort of know what's going to happen by the end, but they still find a way to make it interesting, man.
There's a lot of shows that do it like that too. It's like you kind of already know what's going to happen, but it still intrigues you to keep watching. But SVU might do it the best out of those. Man, I got back-to-back picks here, and looking at could go a bunch of different directions. So we got The Office, and Jonathan wanted the EU version, not the US version, if I remember correctly.
That is not correct. No, I wanted the US version.
Man, there's a lot of. I'm going to go with Breaking Bad as my first pick.
Oh yeah,
that's the only show that I've ever finished. And as soon as I finished that last season, I went, "That was the best show I've ever seen." It had a great ending. super slow in the beginning. That first season, if you can get through that first season, and similar to The Office, if you can get through those first seasons, they turn into bangers. So I'm going Breaking Bad. I still haven't watched Better Call Saul yet. That's probably one I should probably put on my list to go watch, but haven't yet. So I think that would have been my 101. So happy with that. Man. I think there's the one I want here, I think could get back to me. So I'm going to go with another show that people loved, and it's pretty recent. I'm going to go with Ted Lasso.
Pretty decent. Yeah, I've never watched it though. Is it good?
I haven't gotten a chance to
great
watch
show.
it either, but I've heard I want to so badly. Looks amazing.
It's Apple, so a lot of people don't have Apple, but I think it's when it was coming out. You don't make watch parties anymore with streaming platforms. That's a show you could get together with a bunch of friends and watch through, and just makes you feel good about yourself. So we're going with Ted Lasso, Breaking Bad. Super happy with both of those. So back to you, John or B-Will.
All right, I couldn't go without putting a cartoon in here, and I think this is probably my favorite cartoon of all time. Besides SpongeBob, I wasn't going to add SpongeBob just because I grew up watching that. But This is one that I watched growing into my adulthood too, and as I was a teenager, is The Boondocks. One of the funniest cartoons I have ever watched, and I still go back and watch all the episodes. They still got the memes that still come from it is hilarious, and it foretold a lot of stuff that happened too. So, I mean, just an exceptional TV show, man. And rest in peace to I think the creator passed, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Oh wow.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that, but I think he did.
There's many quotes that come from the Boondocks. It's
exceptional show, man.
That's a show I totally forgot about that would have been on my list that I just didn't think of. So, yeah, cool. Back to you, Jonathan.
Okay. This is where I have to slate in this show now because it can't slide that far. I'm gonna roll with Game of Thrones. It's obvious, just
that was the one
banger. Up until season 7, really, just incredible cinema. Even if you don't like that style of show, I mean the storytelling. They did such a fantastic job up until the very end, where they just absolute pissed on it, but so good otherwise. So got to go with it here. And then to starting. Are we starting we're starting the third round now?
Huh? Yeah, you got first pick and third round.
Cool. Okay. I'm gonna go with kind of a newer show that is a steal in the third round. I think so far they have not failed us. It's almost over. It's going into the last season, and it is big time. I'm gonna go with Stranger Things.
Oh, it was definitely on my list.
What is it about? I haven't seen it. Is that really sci-fi?
Oh my! Yeah,
people have told me to watch it.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original. And yeah, it's a sci-fi story based in the 70s and 80s, I think. So
yep,
yeah,
based around. It's got a lot of I want to say it has Dungeons and Dragons involved, but it's not based around Dungeons and Dragons. So you get a lot of that. You got some scary parts. It's just a very well written story.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna lie. As soon as I see a dragon, I cut the TV off.
Yeah, you don't see any dragons. There's no dragons.
No, you won't see any dragons. It's got some horror in it, but it's something you could watch with the kids too. So it's not overly scary.
Was it me next?
Yep, it's back to you.
All right, man. I'm a huge conspiracy buff, and I 100% believe aliens are real. So I have to put Ancient Aliens on here as my third choice. You talk about just staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning watching Ancient Aliens, because the thing with Ancient Aliens is you'll see something on there, and you're like, shit, I gotta Google this, and then it sends you to a rabbit hole for another hour while you're sitting there on the couch. You got popcorn over there, ice cream, whatever you're doing, and you're just finding out all types of crazy stuff, man. I love Ancient Aliens. I know when my guy on there gets on with the frizzy hair, I know he's about to drop some heat, man. Ancient Aliens, this could have went higher for me. Ever.
Yeah. Man, that's a good pick. Another one I wouldn't have thought of. And I got a lot on my list now, and I didn't really order them beforehand, so I could go a bunch of different ways. But one I'm gonna take here just because of the nostalgia, I think. And I'm probably going to go to nostalgia with my next two picks. And that's the Chappelle Show.
Oh,
So
Chappelle
good.
Show was such a great show growing up. And Dave Chappelle, just an icon. Super happy with Chappelle Show. And then last one, this is one that wasn't on my list, but when we got to talking about the Boondocks and how they recently had their creator pass away, that got me into Dragon Ball Z. They lost
Dragon
their
Ball Z
creator
for sure.
earlier this week.
And rest in
And I
peace,
think-
Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, I think about coming home after school, turning on Dragon Ball Z and watching Gohan turn Super Saiyan 2 and blowing away Cell. That was like peak for my childhood. So I'm super happy with Dragon Ball Z with the 4th pick. And back to you, B. Will, for your last pick.
Not gonna lie, boys, I think I got y'all this week with this last one. Just insane value for the 4th pick. This easily could have went 1-1, I think, and it should have been my first overall pick. But I've got to put South Park on here.
Yep.
Can't believe
It's on
y'all
my
let me
list.
get it. I can't believe
It's on
y'all
my
let me
list.
get it. But South Park is absolutely hilarious, man. One of my favorite shows. I still go back and rewatch episodes. It's another one that almost caused me to flunk out of college. That and House, but South Park, just hilarious. The meme potential from it, and I love cartoons that foretell and sort of have a little foresight and sort of predict the future a little bit, like The Simpsons. And South Park does it all the time, even though they really make fun of stuff that's current. A lot of things that happen in there end up happening later on.
Yep.
So, love South Park, man.
And we're talking about longevity. South Park is
Yes.
up there.
On
if not
season
the
like
top.
19
episode.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wild.
And they're not stopping. We're
That's
giving
value.
them plenty of subject matter with every passing day.
And not to mention, man, how long have they lasted just in terms of like controversy? Like they've overcome
yeah.
everything,
How are
They got
Not
canceled
like
before that was a
canceled.
thing.
Yeah. Crazy, man. I'll never forget being in high school and like watching some of those episodes and being like, what? Oh my God. Yeah.
Back then, too.
And you would think like they would never be able to survive today, but they're doing it. They're
Yeah.
doing it.
They're doing
I think
the
they're
thing.
grandfathered in.
I think so too. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that's just grandpa. He's a
Just-
little
yeah.
racist over there in the corner. Don't pay him no attention. That's how it feels with South Park. Okay, so going into the last pick, this is really tough. This is tough because the pick I have a pick that's talking to me in my head. I have my brain and then my heart talking, and I'm going to go with my heart because that's just the type of person I am. My brain is telling me go with The Simpsons. Like it's a classic. Again, you want to talk about longevity?
Yep.
Even longer than South Park. Still
Right.
going. Incredible show. Predicts literally everything. Just timeless classic. But I'm going to go with my heart here. And I'm going to go with the show that has almost the exact same longevity as The Simpsons, believe it or not, but in a completely different genre and has changed the show in a billion different ways. A billion different adaptations, but it is the biggest IP in the entire world. And I'm going to go with Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
Classic. Grew up on Pokemon. I'm a big fan of it still today. I'm sharing the same love for Pokemon with my son now. And, maybe I'm just the generation that it wrapped its arms around, but that was a really, really big one for me at a young age. And to this day, I love it. So got to go with that for the last pick.
Yeah.
Just when you think you know where I'm going, I throw you a curveball.
Man, there's still a lot of picks I have on my draft board that I think need honorable mentions, and I'm sure you guys got some too. I think The Simpsons, you alluded to one that's deserving. And it's got the longevity. It just might not have that top end value for me. I mean, but other than that, Band of Brothers, that was up there for me. That was pretty nostalgic.
Ooh, yeah.
That 70s show, I think I've seen every episode. That was one I fell in love with. How I Met Your Mother, Parks and Rec, Saturday Night Live was one that I had on my list. Impractical Jokers. There's a lot of different ways I thought this draft could go. Do you guys have any that you want to shout out? Family Guy's another good one.
Family Guy, Narcos. Love Narcos.
The Sopranos.
The Sopranos, yeah.
There's just so much.
There's a lot. There's so much good TV, and now it's still with the streaming platforms, a lot of good TV shows that go unnoticed. Like The Bear right now is probably my favorite TV show out, and there's just constant content coming out, and there's a lot of great creators out there. But thanks for everybody for checking out the show. We got about 400 people in the chat. This is the most comments we've ever had. Make sure you go like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be covering free agency, I'm sure, next Thursday as well. Might drop a couple solo videos here and there. Make sure you check us out on all the socials, and we'll talk to you guys later. Love you, mean it.
See y'all.